Hello, and welcome to Change the Face of Yoga, teaching toddlers through golden oldies. I'm very excited to be talking to lots of yoga teachers who will explain their passion for teaching yoga to students with different ages, physical fitness levels, wellness levels, and different goals. They will explain the benefits of yoga for these students and will be including teacher tips and pose modifications. I am Stephanie Cunningham of Yoga Lightness, and I've been teaching over 50s for 10 years. So this area is my passion and the passion of many other yoga teachers that you will be listening to in this series. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get started.
Hello, this is episode 31 of Changing the Face of Yoga. And we are recapping the recent teacher training series with Maria Kirsten, Flo Fenton, and Christine Coveri-Weber. We discuss the status of the 200 level teacher training course. We also discuss what someone who is looking for a training might do to find a course that's really good for them. And then how this training affects the perception of the public of the professionalism of yoga teachers. Let's listen. Welcome to the Changing the Face of Yoga. I am going to do a wrap-up of the teacher training series. Now we had 3 people talk to us. Maria Kirsten of Yoga for Grown-Ups teaches in different teacher trainings, primarily in the anatomy area, and also provides training for yoga for seniors. She is a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, and will finish occupational therapy training this year. Flo Fenton, our second guest of In Touch Byron Bay, is a yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and provides yoga teacher training. Christine Coveri-Weber, our third guest of Subtle Yoga, is a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, and provides yoga teacher training and is particularly interested in yoga for mental health. There was great agreement on the 200 level training, which was really found to be insufficient to be considered as something that provides a qualified yoga teacher. But each guest looked at it slightly differently and found some different solutions. Maria believes there is a cycle of learning. Knowledge acquisition, you apply that knowledge, and then you reflect on what additional knowledge you need because of that application. This takes time and basically is a lifelong cycle of learning. This is especially true in anatomy, as it is a complex subject and is the one area that many new teachers feel their knowledge is not adequate. I did a small poll using Facebook groups and asked people what was the best thing that came out of their teacher training and what was the thing they felt least prepared in. And by a large margin, anatomy came out as being the area that they felt least prepared. And from my experience with this podcast, most of my guests, especially those in particular areas, teaching people that perhaps aren't at high fitness levels or wellness levels or different ages, that the anatomy training that they received was not terribly helpful for them teaching these kinds of populations. You are taught in 200 level the very most basic anatomy, just pretty much how things work, and differences based on age or wellness or fitness are really not gone into. It is an area that I think a lot of people feel they could use some more help. Now, if we look at what Flo's opinions on the 200 level were, she started her yoga teacher journey with a 3,000 plus hours, full-time, 9-month training, all of it face-to-face. She's rather concerned that the 200-hour training, and some trainings are mostly online, what is the actual knowledge that's really gained in these trainings, especially trainings that use the business model, with as many students as possible in each training to maximize profit. Are these students getting a good educational experience? Christine points out that in the U.S., hairdressers and dental hygienists must complete thousands of hours to be certified to work in their field. Again, the time needed to complete these trainings is a year at a minimum. Christine is a mentor and a mentee and believes that there are benefits to both sides. And this may be a way to make up the deficiencies in the 200 level teacher training. Having an experienced yoga teacher to help them find their feet is another way of learning and can be very beneficial. How should we change basic yoga teacher training? All of them believe that the 200-hour basic training as it is now set up is insufficient because of the lack of depth of knowledge in the initial training, little or no time to actually integrate and apply the information, and even less time to develop a sense of what the student doesn't know and what are the gaps in his or her knowledge. Maria's cycle of lifelong learning can, over time, provide the necessary knowledge and experience for a yoga teacher. However, that does require that the student is willing to participate in lifelong learning of sufficient depth. Flo would argue, I think that if you've only got 200 hours under your belt, it's very difficult for you to have the base of knowledge to build on, to continue learning through lifelong learning opportunities. But she also informed us of a new policy being developed by Yoga Australia, the body that certifies yoga teacher training programs in Australia. They are going to audit certified programs to see what they are actually teaching in their programs. The process that a individual or a business goes through to become a certified teacher training program is that they have a set of conditions that they must meet. They must provide so many hours in anatomy and so many hours in the philosophy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they then write a proposal saying this is what they're going to do. If it meets the requirements, then they can offer a teacher training program that does certify the graduates at a certain level in Yoga Australia. The problem is, at least it appears to be the problem, that this is never checked. Is what they said they would do still doing that? Or have they kept their knowledge upgraded and that they are very current with the newest ideas that are occurring in the industry? That's never been checked before, as far as we know. Yoga Australia is in the middle of developing a policy that would require audits of these teacher training programs. Most will have a desk audit, which means that they answer a series of questions provided by Yoga Australia. And this is all a paper, electronic kind of audit. They will answer these questions and give them back, and probably, there's some to and fro as people work out exactly what's happening. A few will have an audit on site for a couple of days. The Yoga Australia people, whoever might be doing this, will actually be watching teacher training, I assume, and seeing how they actually deliver this particular teacher training. It's a good start to hold teacher training programs accountable. My problem is that, according to what Flo understands, it will only be one teacher training will get an on-site audit annually. And there are a lot of teacher trainings in Australia, a lot everywhere actually, where yoga is popular. And one a year is probably not sufficient to do a lot of things. It probably doesn't make people who are contemplating taking yoga teacher training thinking that they can count on what's happening and that it is in line with the newest thinking in the industry, and that people will really have an opportunity to get a really good basic training. I think they're going to have to think through how they can actually do more audits on site. Flo and I estimated that there's at least 100 teacher training programs in Australia. So with this policy, it would take at least 100 years. Now, as I've said, I don't know exactly. All I have is a document that Flo sent me, so I don't know exactly where they are in this process. But if this is of any interest to you, I would look into it and see just exactly how they're going to implement this. It's fine to have a policy. This is my old life. I used to be a policy person. But the implementation is always the really difficult part. And they need to think through how they want to do that. Now, Christine has a slightly different view. She thinks that maybe that the best use and highest use of the 200 level will be as a lifestyle course for individuals that simply want more information for their own practice and to go deeper into the yoga lifestyle, the yoga philosophy. That really the 500 level may be the best place to start. It certainly gives you more information, more time, and can integrate Maria's ideas about, knowledge acquisition, applying that knowledge, and then reflection on what needs to be learned next. And the longer it is like that, like Flo's 9-month teacher training that she participated in, it gives you time to really think through what you know, and it gives you time to apply it. And that's really the tricky part of this. You may be an excellent student that can learn lots and lots easily and remember it and give it back when it's asked, but do you actually know how to take that information and apply it in a class? And you really won't know that until you get the opportunity to do so. And if you're not given that opportunity at all or very little, it could be quite a big shock to actually try to get in front of a class and realize what you know and what you don't know. Those are all really good ideas. I love the discussions that we had, that we could look at yoga teacher training and see that it had some problems, that it simply wasn't as robust as really experienced teachers thought it should be. Now we can take Maria's thoughts and say maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe we do need to have a block of knowledge, a block of time to learn something, and then we go out and we apply it. And then we figure out, we reflect on that. And when we reflect on it, we find that, these are the areas where we need additional help. Christine's idea of mentorship, and I would say that Yoga Australia does require that if your basic yoga teacher training was not a full year, that you must make up that year with mentoring. And they have several teachers at the level that they are considered experienced enough to provide mentoring to a new student. Christine thinks it has a great deal of benefit for a new student, a new teacher rather, which is that it's very hard to critique all of the things that you can hear, like on Facebook or whatever in the media, about what you should and shouldn't do as a teacher of yoga. And it's probably very, very difficult for a brand new teacher to have the expertise to really, first of all, understand the issue and why people have different opinions on it, and secondly, to decide where they stand. Christine gave a very good example of that, which was that, there's a lot of talk right now about how deep breathing may be unhelpful, shall we say. And there are reasons why people are saying that, but a new teacher has just been told, most likely in their beginning yoga teacher training, that no, deep breathing is really good for you and it does all these great things. So a new teacher using Christine's example could be very confused, and an experienced teacher can come in and say, yes, that's true and that's true, but here's one way to think of it, or what would you do in these circumstances? And so they can help guide them until they really get their feet underneath them, and that they can say, okay, I understand. I've worked with enough people. I've worked with people that were doing deep breathing. I've worked with people when we're doing other things, and so now I can start to make my own way because I have that experience under my belt. So all of those things are really good, and even if it was a 500 level was the beginning yoga teacher training, those concepts of the cycle of learning and mentorship and face-to-face, which is what Flo thinks is extremely important, all of that would still apply to the 500 level if that became the very beginning teacher training course. But the person coming out of that 500 level course would be much more prepared and able to begin to critique what they see in the yoga journals and Facebook and all those other places where we discuss yoga stuff. The reality is basic training is 200 hours. And so Flo has given a list of things that if you're contemplating taking some teacher training, that you first figure out what you want from it. Are you going to niche? Are you going to need some specialized information? Or if not, will they provide a good basis so you can go then and find that specialized information? And time, cost, all of that is very individualistic. But Flo says that she would suggest that when you have a group of trainings you're considering, that you ask these questions. Does the course require that trainees have experience taking yoga classes? And if so, for how long? And do they actually implement that policy? Do they actually say, yes, you have to have a year, and if you don't have a year, we won't take you? Is the content up to date? How do they bring in new information into their teacher training course? How often do they update it? Those kinds of things. Now, do students have the opportunity for ongoing support after graduation? So are they going to provide mentoring? Are they available for emails? Are they available for phone calls or whatever? Will there be some way for the teacher, the brand new teacher, to talk to someone who's more experienced from the school? And are the graduates confident in their ability to teach? In other words, have they had many opportunities to practice teaching the public several times during the course? So have they been teaching? Do they know what that means? Can they put a sequence together? Can they come up with the correct language? Can they know how to modify if necessary? Importantly, what is the teacher-student ratio? How much individual time will you as a student actually get with the teachers? If there's 10 in the class, or is there 50 in the class? And if there is 50 in the class, are there more teachers than there would be if there were only 10? It's that kind of thing that you want to think about if you're considering it. Flo has come up with the perfect teacher training, okay? So it's much more lengthy. It requires commitment and discipline. It is a minimum of 1 year of contact. And there's lots of times for students to practice and practice teaching. They will know how to differentiate themselves from other teachers. Before starting the training, they must have attended yoga classes for at least a year. And they know how to maintain their student body and how to conduct a business. Another way to look at it is Christine has provided a 20-page PDF for students that are contemplating a 200-hour program about how to develop what the potential student wants from the program and how to find out if the program delivers what they want. And I think that's really, really important that you decide what you want from the program. I mean, it's great to say, oh, I want to be a yoga teacher. Obviously, a lot of us have said that. And the point being, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to volunteer your time? Do you want to do 1 or 2 classes a week? Do you want to live off of your yoga classes, your teaching ability? What exactly are you looking at? Or, and I did know some of these in my own 200 level, they weren't interested in teaching, they simply wanted to deepen their own knowledge. I think it's important that before going into something like this, that you actually know what you're trying to achieve. So that at the end, you can say, yes, I got the information I wanted, or no, or I won't know for 6 months because it's going to take me that long to put my plans in place for whatever those may be. One of the underlying themes that kept coming up was that these 200 level trainings do contribute to a perception of lack of professionalism in yoga. That yoga teachers are not considered professionals even in the same bracket with hairdressers and dental hygienists. And we've all seen the research that yoga can make a very big difference in a health setting. It's becoming more and more accepted as a non-invasive way of helping people. Recently, a study came out where yoga was one of the things that was recommended for lower back pain, and a lot of people have lower back pain. As yoga grows and expands its influence and becomes much more than the perception of yoga as simply fitness yoga. As a result, if you want to work with doctors and physios and therapists of all kinds, there will have to be a much greater level of professionalism in perception. I'm not saying that yoga teachers aren't professional. I'm saying that the perception is that they are not professionals. If one does continue, and all of these guests do that, they continue to learn. They're continuing to have their own mentors. They're continuing to apply new knowledge and figure out what's possible now and what needs to be added to their classes, what needs to be taken away. They certainly are professional, all 3 of them. And I think anybody meeting them would have no problem accepting that. But they've also all worked for many years building that professional persona and building that professional reputation because they act professionally. They take their profession seriously. They are always looking for new information to make themselves better. They reflect on what they know and what they don't know. And they accept that they have a role, but they do not go beyond it. Teacher training is just the first step, obviously. I wonder, though, how many people, like Flo said, who have the commitment and discipline to understand that if they truly want to be a professional yoga teacher, that this is a lifelong, or at least as long as you want to continue to do it, activity that you will continually be learning and you will continually want to add to your knowledge, apply that knowledge, and then reflect on that knowledge. Those 3 things are really important to be considered a professional, but also just to be considered a good yoga teacher. I really want to thank my guests. They were wonderful and they were very honest and open. It's a bit touchy to talk about this subject, but they were very, very good about telling me and you what their opinions were based on, lots and lots of years of study for all 3 of them. So they have the gravitas, shall we say, to make these statements. So if you want Christine's 20-page PDF, you should go to her website, www.subtleyoga.com. Sign up for her newsletter, and they will send you the PDF. And that should help you, first of all, figure out what you want to achieve with a yoga teacher training, and then to find the one that most meet your needs. So again, I thank all my guests, Maria Kirsten, Flo Phantom, and Christine Coleri-Weber. They were wonderful, and I appreciate the conversations I had with every one of them. So if you're contemplating teacher training, it is probably worth your while to think about some of the questions that both Flo and Christine have presented, and figure out where you fit in the huge world of yoga teachers.
Thank you for that wonderful interview. If you would like to be a guest on Changing the Face of Yoga, please go to my website, www.yogalightness.com.au, and under the Changing the Face of Yoga tab, you can complete Be Our Guest form. After reviewing the form and finding it applicable to this podcast, we will send you a link to schedule an interview. Please download, review, and tell your friends of any podcasts that are of interest to you and to them. If you would like to contact me, send an email to info@yogalightness.com.au. And thank you for listening to Changing the Face of Yoga.